The Texans are on a 7-game win streak for the second time in franchise history. And I go into my comment sections, I read almost every comment, I go into the NFL Texans highlights, I read their comment section, I go on Twitter, I see what Texans fans are saying, and a good chunk of the fan base doesn't, or for whatever reason, is unhappy with the 7-game win streak. And to me, it just makes no sense, dude. Like, we're the Texans. We don't win as often like this. I mean, literally, for 16 years, we've been a mediocre team. We've had a few good winning seasons, only 2 really. The other ones that we did go into the playoffs, we were 9-7. Really not that impressive, and this season we have a chance of going into the playoffs as a non-9-7 team in a division that's kind of getting a little bit more competitive, so it won't be as easy as previous years, but still people are displeased, and I just don't get it. Like, I really don't. I understand that you want blowouts upon blowouts upon blowouts upon blowouts, but that's just not going to happen. It's not. We're not that team yet. We're a good team. We're not a great team. Great teams blow out almost every team on their schedule. We're a team that is currently undergoing a culture change. A team that is learning how to win. In the past, the Texans would have lost a bunch of these games during the 7-game win streak. But guess what? We've won these games, and just enjoy the ride. Because as Texans fans, we don't get to experience a winning team like this pretty much ever. Like, literally, this is only the 3rd time in 16 years our team has been this good, to the point where they've won multiple games consecutively, to the point where they're actually legitimate playoff contenders. Now, don't get it wrong. I don't think this team, and I know some people are going to hate to hear this, I don't think this team is ready for a Super Bowl run. I don't. But you know what? As bad as Deshaun Watson played yesterday, I don't care. As long as number 4 is under center, we have a chance. I want Deshaun Watson to go into the playoffs and get some playoff experience. I think that's very important. And maybe next year, we fix up the O-line a bit, the tackles, we get a corner or 2, and then we can really make a serious run. And guess what? When we get into the playoffs next year, Deshaun Watson is going to be a second time going into the playoffs rather than it being the first time. So why not just make the playoffs? And who knows, if you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. Now, it's obvious, man. Deshaun, he needs to play more consistent in the games, and he needs to play more consistent week to week if we want to, I guess, do damage in the playoffs. Because I do think this team is playoff bound, but Deshaun Watson needs to play better from week to week and from quarter to quarter, drive to drive. Because against Denver, against Washington, the Texans' offense started off red hot in both of those games, and then they just cooled off, like completely shut off. And yeah, it's consistency issues, and it's not all on Deshaun. Like, a lot of people have some blame, like Ryan Griffin on a terrible missed block. There were injuries, of course. Like, stuff happens, I get it, but Deshaun Watson deserves some of the blame as well. But anyways, just how impressive is this Texans 7-game win streak, which is what we're really here to talk about today. I know I kind of rambled on early on in the video, but this is what we're really here to talk about. Just how impressive is it? Now, 7 games in a row won. Not everybody does it. It's difficult to do in the NFL, especially considering that we started 0-3. Literally, I think only the 1925 Giants were the only other team to go on a 7-game win streak after a 0-3 start, but that wasn't even in the Super Bowl era, so they don't really count that. So technically, in the Super Bowl era, the Texans are the only team to do that. So 7-game win streak is hard to do no matter what. I know some people are going to say, oh man, look at who they've beat. They've played no one. It's hard to do no matter what, man. How many times have the Texans not played bad teams and then lost? I mean, hell, earlier in the season they played bad teams and they lost, so it's impressive. 7 games won in a row is impressive no matter what. Some wins were lucky, some were blowout wins, some were acceptable wins, others were yikes. But, at the end of the day, the Texans are finding ways to win games, and I think that's all that matters. Now, let's start off at the very start when this win streak started. The Colts. When we got that win, man, I hated it. That win was gifted to us. That game really should have been a tie. But looking at it now, 6 weeks later, 7 weeks later, if you include the bye week, I love the fact that we got that win, even though it was kind of gifted to us, because guess what? Now the Texans have a 2.5 game lead on the Colts rather than just a half game lead, because if the Texans would have tied that game with the Colts would be 5-4-1 and the Texans would be 6-3-1, and yeah, the Colts would be in prime position to take advantage of that. Now there's a little bit room for error for the Texans if they do make some mistakes down the line and lose some games. So I'm 100% happy that we got that win, and the Colts are now starting to look like a quality team. So maybe, just maybe, that Colts win, even though it was gifted to us, was kind of a nice win. I'd even say it is a nice win because, again, we don't want a tie, man. Ties are annoying. And then the second game against the Cowboys, I thought that was a hard-fought, earned win, in my opinion. The Cowboys are looking like a team that's going to make the playoffs, and I do 100% stand behind that. I think the Redskins are going to fall apart now that Alex Smith is done for the season, and I think the Eagles are a complete mess, and you guys already know what the Giants are, so the only team that's probably has a chance to make the playoffs out of them is the Cowboys. So the Cowboys are probably going to make the playoffs, so that means the Texans beat a playoff-bound Cowboys team. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Jason Garrett should have ran the ball on, what were they, the Texans' 40 or 45-yard line. It was a 4th and a long one, so pretty much 4th and 2. The Texans were stopping Ezekiel Elliott all day long, so what really makes anyone think that Ezekiel Elliott was going to get the first down? I think we had a better chance of stopping him, honestly. And then, of course, DeAndre Hopkins had that those beautiful spin moves to set up the game-winning field goal. And then he had the Bills game. I think the Bills win was probably the ugliest win we've had all season. That one, Deshaun played his worst career game, and I mean, it's understandable. He had a terrible injury he was playing through, and the Bills just kept on coming after him. He got rattled because of the injury, and all the hits he had to take that game, but took in that game, because I believe he got sacked like 6 or 7 times in that game. So that was really bad. At the end of the day, though, the Texans found a way to win, and even if Nathan Peterman wouldn't have came in and thrown that pick six, I still 100% believe that the Texans would have won that game, because I just don't think Josh Allen's a good quarterback. I think if Josh Allen stays in the game, I don't think he throws that touchdown pass that Nathan Peterman threw, so I still think the Texans would have won that game. The Bills just weren't a good team, but again, that was an ugly win. But I'd rather have it be an ugly win than for it to be an ugly loss, So I guess the Bills won, in my opinion. It's probably the only ugly win we've had that's like really, really ugly that I'm kind of not okay with. And then you have the Jags game. The Jags game, of course, Deshaun had to travel on a bus, I believe it was 14 hours, something like that, 12 hours, because he couldn't fly on the plane. The Texans went in there, executed a beautiful game plan by Bill O'Brien, ran the ball, had the ball out of Deshaun Watson's hands. I believe Watson only threw for 100 and something yards, man. Literally, the plan was to keep the ball out of Deshaun Watson's hands so he wouldn't get hit. And it worked, man. The Texans beat the Jaguars 20-7, our second biggest win of the season. And that kind of started the Jaguars' implosion, because after the Texans beat them, they were arguing and fighting in the locker room. Prior to that, they weren't doing so. So you could say that the Texans really kind of started the downfall of the Jaguars. And the game after that, of course, you have Miami on a short week, Thursday Night Football, where the Texans are usually pretty bad. But you guys know, we blew out the Dolphins. This game should have been like a 57-14 type game if the refs weren't helping out the Dolphins all game. So, I mean, the blowout win against Miami, I mean, who wouldn't take it? It was a blowout win. Unfortunately, we did lose Will Fuller for that game, for the season in that game. So that kind of sucked, but again, Miami win was impressive because, again, it was a blowout, what everybody wants out of these Texans this season. But the one I really have a problem with, not that I have a problem with the win, I have a problem with people having a problem with the win, if that makes sense, because we went into Denver, a tough place to win, a tough place to play, and barely beat the Broncos. But guess what? These same Broncos just beat the Chargers. The Chargers were previously 7-2. The Chargers are considered the second best team in the AFC behind the Chiefs. These Broncos beat them. Not only that, these same Broncos, they took 2 L's versus the Chiefs. The combined score from those 2 games, 10 points. They lost one by 3 and lost the other by 7. They lost to the Rams by 3 points. And they lost to the Texans by 2 points. This Broncos team is a lot better than what a lot of people want to give them credit for. They're better than their record indicates. But, you know, Texans fans think every single team we play is bad. But I disagree. I think the Cowboys are an average team. I think the Colts are an average to above average team. I think the Dolphins are an average team. And I think the Broncos are an average to above average team that's just had a tough schedule. And the Redskins, I think they're an above average to good team. But, you know, after we beat the Redskins, everybody's calling the Redskins a bad team, man. It's dumb. I mean, seriously. The Redskins have one of the top defenses in the league. The Texans would have blown out the Redskins if it wasn't for that phantom fumble, if it wasn't for the holding no calls. I mean, literally, Clowney got grasped in the face mask like at least 4 times, and they never called it. And it was usually during big plays like quarterback runs. And then you had the missed field goals, and then you had Alex Smith going out with an injury and Colt McCoy coming in and performing better than Alex Smith did all game. If the Texans make the field goals, if Alex Smith don't get hurt, if the refs make the right call on the fumble, the Texans probably win this game like 30-10. Honestly, this game shouldn't have been that close, but of course, you know, the refs had to interfere in the game. The Alex Smith injury happened. Injuries to our guards happened in the middle of the game. So, I mean, you can't really be pissed about that win. And the field goal at the end, it was 5 yards close. And something I forgot to mention in my video, and credit to Pat D-Stat for pointing this out. At the end of the game, on the final play, the missed field goal, the Redskins were going to go for it on 4th and 10, but O'Brien called a timeout and made Jay Gruden reconsider, you know, his decision, which made him kick a 63-yard field goal against the wind in the cold air with a kicker that was injured. So Bill O'Brien's playing mind games out here, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. The Texans in the past have been put in positions, Bill O'Brien in general, or in particular, he's been put in positions where the Texans have to make these tough decisions like, you know, should I go for it? Should I run the ball here? Should I pass it here? And then usually, you know, it ends up being the bad decision, and everybody scolds O'Brien for it, and like, oh, O'Brien, you're an idiot. But guess what? This season, those roles are reversed. The Texans are putting teams in a position to make the tough decisions. For example, the Colts game. They were, in a 4th and 5 situation late in overtime. The Texans put the Colts in that position, and the Colts decided to go for it. And it was probably ended up being the bad decision because they lost, of course. And then, of course, he had the Dallas incident, the 4th and long one. Decided to punt it because they thought that was the best idea. because we were stopping the run. And of course, the Cowboys ended up losing. The Texans won. You had the Texans with the Broncos, where again Vance Joseph pretty much was scared of J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney wrecking them. A 50-yard field goal rather than to trust Case Keenum, which is understandable, or trust his run game to get a few more yards, because again Watt and Clowney were coming. So he forced Vance Joseph to kick a longer field goal than he really should have, and they ended up missing. And then, of course, what I just mentioned right now, the mind games with Jay Gruden, made him kick a 63-yard field goal in tough conditions with an injured kicker. That kick was like a good 5 to 8 yards short, man. So it wasn't even close. So again, how I said in the beginning of the video, man, this Texans team is learning how to win. They're learning how to be winners. This culture is changing. It's different. It's a different vibe from these Texans. These are not the same old Texans. They're not. Because again, in the past, a lot of these games during the 6-game win streak, they would have been L's. And the blowouts will come. Trust me. It might not be this year. But once Deshaun Watson improves as a quarterback, because a lot of people seem to think that Deshaun Watson should be untouchable. You can't criticize him. But Deshaun makes mistakes, man. Every player makes mistakes. Deshaun is young. He's going to get better. He will learn. It's a process. It's a process, and Deshaun, he will learn from his mistakes and move on and progress as a player. And, why not enjoy Deshaun Watson growing as a quarterback? Why not enjoy watching our team become winners? These guys are literally going from losers, mediocre, to a winning team. It's a culture change. It takes time. If you watch the post-game locker room videos, I don't know if you guys know about those, but like almost every game, after the game, they post whatever happens in the locker room, a little celebration, and these guys actually believe in each other. So, just enjoy the ride. There is no reason to be pissed that the Texans aren't getting these fashionable blowout wins like the Saints, because you know what? Drew Brees is a 40-year-old quarterback. He's a veteran. Well, I don't know if he's 40. He's like 38, but he's a veteran. He's been in the league for years. Deshaun, he's just in his second year. Deshaun will get better. Deshaun will, at some point, maybe not this year, he will start to tear up opposing teams like Drew Brees. The O-line will get better. Whether, the players improve or whether we bring in someone in the draft, we will get some better players in that secondary down the road. It's just gonna happen, man. Like, just enjoy it, please, because how many times have we not been in a position to, make something happen and then everything goes wrong? Or how many times have we not been hyped up about our team being good and then they just disappoint, like the 2013 season or last year? Like, you never know, man. Like, just enjoy it again. I know I've been saying this a lot, but it's really kind of frustrating that Texans fans expect way more. And it's not that the expectations are set too high, because I think the expectations on this team are set just right. I just believe that the Texans fans are kind of in denial about having a good team. And look, I get it, because before these last 3 games, I was kind of the same way. And I tweeted out that these next 3 games will tell a lot about the Texans. If the Texans go 0-3 or 1-2 during this span, that, they're the same old Texans. But guess what? They went 3-0 during that span. So maybe these aren't the same old Texans. Most likely these aren't the same old Texans. And, I get it. I mean, how many times have we not been disappointed by our Houston teams? Expectations are high, and then bad things happen. Things go south real quick. And I get it. It's hard to believe in a Houston team. It really is. But, again, enjoy the ride. Enjoy it, because you never know what can happen at the end of the day. You never know if we'll ever get to experience this. So, again, anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.